Question, Mr. Prime Minister, and again, I'm going to try to be tactful here, but I think a lot of concerns in Europe, in the EU, which is a values-based agreement across these nations, is that nations sometimes get in and that the values arrangements they had made are ones they forget. And it becomes complicated in that relationship. We don't have to call out nations in this particular case, but some are pretty close to here. And so I guess in that arrangement, how does that affect the I guess the solvency, if you will, of what you're talking about, a values-based agreement, of bringing Georgia forward so that you can communicate that Georgia will not be a nation that slips in those commitments?
Well, first of all, I think we have to make it very clear. So today we are talking about the candidacy, right? About the candidate status.
Right.
We're not talking about the membership.
Right.
We understand, as President also mentioned, we're not we're not looking for a shortcut, or we're not looking for something that is for granted, for free. We understand it's a long process.
Right.
We understand we have to continue all our reforms, and we took commitments. We'll continue all these reforms. But today, the question is about granting the candidate status or not. And it's a message. It is a message to all of us, to all our nations. It's a message to Russia as well. So from our side, I want to repeat. So we have implemented all these reforms. We have strengthened democratic institutions. We are one of the best performers, best reformers in the wider region, not only in our region, but in the wider region. In terms of transparency, accountability, or media freedom, rule of law, judicial reforms. Let's take, for example, several days ago, according to World Bank, Georgia is #1 in terms of budget transparency, or doing business, or in every direction, Georgia has been the best performer. So now, then my question is that why not? I mean, granting the candidate status would give us additional motivation. This will be a recognition of our progress that we achieved. But again, of course, we understand that it's a working process. We will continue all the reforms. And we will be motivated. We will be in shape always, you know. And of course, there will be a monitoring mission from the European Union. It's not a one-day, let's say, decision, right? It's a long process till we achieve the full-fledged membership. So therefore, I would still repeat the same. We expect wise decision from the European Union. Because let's be very open and frank here. Russia, when invaded Georgia in 2008, at that time the world thought maybe the context was different and this and that. Let me remind everyone that since 2008, no one in this world imposed sanctions on Russia. No one. On the contrary, we saw some new restart, recharge, or refresh, or all kind of new relationship with Russia, right? In 2014, the world was shocked.
So in your view, that became a green light?
That's right, when Russia annexed Crimea. And again, just recently, the whole world was surprised and shocked when Russia invaded Ukraine. So I mean that the answer from the West must be adequate, must be relevant, must be proportional. So in today's time, difficult times, if the European Union leaves all these countries, like-minded partners, and associated trio like Moldova, Ukraine, Georgia, without granting the symbolic, let's say, candidate status, I would not hesitate to say that this would be a mistake. Because from our side, we have done everything, and we're doing, and we're committed to do, and continue all the reforms. So I would add a few more words regarding Georgia's wish to become a member of the European Union. We're talking to European friends, and I want to make it very clear. Georgia is not a country which is asking always for something for free, something for granted, but we do also contribute. And I'll give you a few examples. Several years ago, we decided to send our troops to Central African Republic. This was a hard decision, difficult decision, because why?
Is this your
Union
first
could not.
area deployment of troops?
That's right. This was an EU-led operation in Central African Republic, and this was a difficult decision. We sent 1 battalion. More than 500 troops were sent to Central African Republic to help our European friends. So what I mean is that we always contribute, and we Georgia and Georgians, are always where Europe needs us, where the world, where the international community needs us. Or let's say NATO, let's take NATO operations and Georgia's participation in NATO operations. In Iraq, in Afghanistan, we have 2,000 troops.
Right.
More than 35, our brave soldiers died, sacrificed their lives to this international idea to fight against terrorism and to fight for the peace and security, to the global peace and security.
Right.
So I mean that, and more than 500 soldiers were severely injured. So my last comment is that Georgia is not asking for something for free, for granted, but we are asking for fair treatment.
Let me pose a question, both of you, from Anton. Excuse me, Anton, this is going to be a tough one. Bendar Zevsky. He asked, could you comment, please, on the public opinion in your countries towards Russia and the European Union, and if the polarized public can destabilize the situation in Moldova and Georgia? And I should just add, both of you have Russian troops within your national boundaries. So does that become something that helps you in your efforts to promote democracy in the areas of the country that they do not occupy, or does it become a constant challenge and threat and reminder?
Well, I have to say that more than 80% of Georgian population support European integration, Euro-Atlantic integration, and I have to say that this is the choice, again, I want to repeat, of our people. And we didn't start this, actually, this journey just 3 years ago. This has always been a dream, a wish, a desire of our people, of our ancestors, centuries ago. So in terms of challenges, of course, the biggest challenge is, of course, the occupation,
right?
Ongoing occupation. 20% of our territory is occupied by Russia. And we live together with the Russian troops on our territory. They're based like 40 kilometers away from my office, from the capital city, Tbilisi. So therefore, of course, Georgia is vulnerable. Of course, Georgia is in a very difficult situation. But regardless, of course, we have been very loyal to our fundamental, let's say, principles, values, and to our dedication to become a member of the European Union and NATO. So therefore, I have to repeat again.
Do you train your citizens in the kinds of potential combat you're seeing unfold in Ukraine right now, worrying that Russia may step over those lines? I think it's been impressive. When I was in Estonia recently, in Tallinn, they're training their people, their regular citizens, in the kind of potential combat that you're seeing in Ukraine today. And I'm just interested in if
training
you're doing
to
that.
do what? To counter
to fight if you get invaded, if you get...
Well, unfortunately, no one experienced the war with Russia in the European Union. We experienced this 3 times already.
Right.
2 in the 90s when we regained independence. We had wars in Abkhazia and Ossetia,
right,
in these 2 breakaway regions. And then in 2008, large-scale war. But we know the price of the war. Therefore, peace and stability is the most important achievement of our government. And this is the only period Georgia has had a long-term peace and stability in our country. Of course, we are doing everything to maintain peace and stability.
Yeah, hi. So I'm Marko Nemet from Slovakia. I have just a quick question for both of you, basically. I want to just ask, where do you see your countries in the upcoming 5 to 10 years in the EU? And if yes, then what's need to be done from your side, from your country?
Mr. Prime Minister, I think you've laid out a number of things you've already done, but is there anything you didn't mention that you're still on the list?
Well, I think I would add a few more words. Georgia is a natural European country, European state. And again, I would say that we have this, I would say, constitution, which is the association agreement, which is the master plan. So we know exactly what we should do, and we're, of course, pursuing these reforms, and we took commitments, and we know how to transform our country and make it into a real European state. So after 5-10 years, of course, we see ourselves in Europe, as in European Union. After 10 years, of course, this is This is our dream and this is our wish.
Konstantin Eget, Deutsche Welle. My question is both to the Madam President and to Mr. Prime Minister. Do you think that the EU candidate status, if it is acquired, will serve as a kind of security guarantee from any kind of Russian armed action against your countries?
Mr. Prime Minister, I'd like you to answer it, but as you do answer it, I also want to ask, how cataclysmic would it not to have that accepted by the EU?
Well, I think we should, again, clarify this issue because this is a very important question. The question was whether the candidate status will give security guarantees. Of course not. And we're not here to talk about the security guarantees, right? The only organization that I know in the world that provides security guarantees is NATO. Today, here, we're talking about the candidate status, which is symbolic, but meaningful, of course. For us, this is meaningful. Therefore, my answer is, of course, not. The candidate status will not provide security guarantees to neither Georgia nor Moldova or Ukraine, but this is rather an encouragement and more, will give more motivation to the countries to continue its reforms.
Twofold question. One is there anything that you wish to be seeing or getting, particularly from America and Washington at the moment? And to what extent do you think domestic polarization is hindering Georgia in this process that we're talking about?
Well, the polarization is everywhere. In every country. This is Georgia's politics is full of emotions. We have been trying to de-escalate, to minimize the polarization. And I think today we have a pretty stable political environment, political stability, economic stability. We have very good and strong economic growth. Last year we had 10.4% economic growth. This year, first quarter, we have 14.4% economic growth. Well, of course, the opposition is everywhere. The job of the opposition is to criticize the government, which is very normal. We have lots of opposition parties in the parliament. We have 9 parties in the parliament. We have lots of opposition TV channels. The media outlet is very, let's say, diversified. As to the first question, what Georgia can ask the U.S., I want to say that America has helped Georgia since we regained our independence significantly. More than $6 billion was donated to Georgia over the last 3 decades. And U.S. has been very generous in supporting Georgian defense forces, providing weapons, training our military personnel, our soldiers, and supporting us on our way towards Euro-Atlantic integration, our path, strengthening democratic institutions, and so on. And we have very good cooperation and truly strong partnership and friendship, and of course we will continue this strategic relationship with America.
Thank you so much. I will be brief. Pavel Havlicek from Association for International Affairs. I have a question to you, Mr. Prime Minister. You said that you like to talk about your country, and that you also asked us why Georgia shouldn't be given, why not to give Georgia candidate status. My question is, and I will be taking us back to last year actually, 11th of July, when a journalist and cameraman was killed in the middle of Tbilisi during the Tbilisi Pride when attacked by the far-right riots. Your government did nothing to protect the activists. Will your government this year repeat the same mistake, or will it really stand up for European values? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Let's go to Elmar Brock right here.
I think candidate status should be given. And I believe that it's needed that this does not become in the future, especially towards Ukraine, as a negotiation chip of the man in Moscow. But that does not mean membership in the immediate future. What do you think about that? That the association agreements all 3 countries have, could be developed to something like a European Economic Area, so to have step-by-step progress of the integration process, where the citizens of your country feel as a progress, not do the same mistake as we do in the Western Balkans, look only for membership and nothing happens for 30 years.
First of all, I have to remind you all that in 2014 we adopted the anti-discrimination law. To eradicate all kind of discrimination And to be honest with you, it's not a problem. And of course, in many countries, even in the member states of the European Union, there are some issues, there are some challenges related to these issues. But this information is not correct. The gentleman said that the operator was killed during this confrontation. I don't want to bother you with all the details here, but I will tell you very briefly. The police arrested more than 30 people who attacked the journalists, operators, and they are prosecuted. They are in jail. This is the obligation of the state to protect every single citizen, regardless their orientation or something like that. And again, I want to remind you that the law that exists in Georgia protects every citizen. Regarding the second question from Mr. Bruck, thank you very much. Nice to see you, sir. Given candidate status, of course, I agree with you, and I've said this, does not mean given membership. So we should not be afraid of giving this encouragement, this motivation to these young democracies, Georgia, Moldova, Ukraine. And let's imagine that EU does not give the candidate status. Who will be happy in this world because of that? Only Russia. But look, what is the example? What is the message that we're spreading in the countries surrounded in our region and beyond in the wider region? That these countries have been loyal, they've been doing all the reforms, they signed association agreement, visa-free, which is tangible, and which our citizens really, use, and we are absolutely grateful. A free trade agreement. Now they submitted this application, and all of a sudden, the European Union decided not to give them this symbolic but meaningful status. Again, I think this would be a mistake, and I think we should convince our European friends to give candidate status to all three countries.